Friends learn about recycling. It was Thursday afternoon, and everyone in Gracie's fifth grade classroom knew what that meant. School project day. It was the time of the week that everyone eagerly awaited. The three fifth grade classes and the special education classes joined together as a team to work on special projects. The team would use the computer lab, the gym, or work on their projects outside. Students with disabilities were paired with students without disabilities to work in small groups. Each group received a topic and were asked to use technology to create a video or a presentation on the subject. When everyone had completed their project, the entire school would get to see their creation. Gracie was thrilled when Miss T, her teacher, placed her good friends Henderson and Bailey in her group. They met in the gym where Meredith and Riker joined them. The subject of the new project was recycling. Each group had to create a commercial that encouraged people to quit being so wasteful and to start making a choice to recycle. Meredith has what's called an invisible disability, which means her condition is hidden. No one can tell. There are some disabilities you can see and some you cannot see. She has limitations that make it hard for her to learn like the other kids, but she's not in a wheelchair or anything like that. Riker has a visible disability. Due to a sickness he had when he was a baby, his brain was permanently damaged. This affected his ability to learn and comprehend things, and it also caused weakness on one side of his body. One arm is very weak, and it mostly just hangs by his side. He can't use it. And one leg isn't as strong as the other, so he walks with a limp. He has a service dog that helps him everywhere he goes. Even though Meredith and Riker have weaknesses, they also have strengths. They are a lot of fun to be around. They enjoy making people laugh, and they love pizza and junk food, just like any other kid. Miss T always says kids with disabilities are the same as kids without disabilities. A kid is a kid. She said that everyone has things they're good at and things they're not good at. We have to look close enough to find the good in everyone. Gracie's group was called the Fancy Five because they were placed with the reading teacher, Mrs. Fancy. Her last name really isn't Fancy, but she always uses big fancy vocabulary words, so everyone in the whole school calls her Miss Fancy. The Fancy Five decided they were going to plan a field trip to the local recycling center in town, where they would make a video of how they could turn trash into treasure. The trip was scheduled for the following week, and Gracie was super excited about it as she counted down the days until the next school project day. On the morning of the field trip, Miss Fancy had necklaces made for the Fancy Five. The necklaces had a card with a word written on them, a fancy word, of course. The students had to look for the word on their card and learn the definition of it. Gracie looked at the words on the cards of all of her friends. They were landfill, packaging, reuse, and reduce. She looked at her word, and it was the biggest, fanciest word of all, biodegradable. This was going to be the best day ever. The Fancy Five didn't notice when the bus drove right past the recycling center. They ended up a few miles out of town. Everyone got off the bus and immediately covered their noses. What in the world was that odor? It was gross with a capital G. Miss Fancy had a little whiteboard with her, and she wrote a word on her board and held it up for them to read. It said, horrendous. She told them the odor was horrendous. The Fancy Five didn't need a dictionary to look that word up. They figured it out. It was horrible. She explained to them that they were at the landfill, the place where all the trash from town was taken and buried under layers of dirt. The manager of the landfill took them for a drive around the place in an old van. Meredith used her tablet to take some pictures and some videos of the mountains of trash. They learned that some of the trash is biodegradable, which means it can degrade or break down and become a part of the soil. If we have garbage that is not biodegradable, such as plastic, glass, aluminum cans, then it creates a problem. A banana peel is biodegradable, and it takes about 3 days to decay. but a plastic bottle will take hundreds of years. A disposable diaper can take 500 to 600 years to break down. The manager stopped at the big mountain of trash and put the windows down in the van. Henderson got so sick at the odor, he almost threw up. They couldn't wait to get away from the place. Miss Fancy wrote 2 words on her board: landfill and biodegradable. They discussed the meanings so the students who had those words on their necklace would remember. As they traveled from the landfill to the recycling center, Miss Fancy wrote reduce on her board. She explained the meaning, and she taught a lesson on how they can reduce or decrease the amount of trash they use. Bailey kept notes so they could add their information to the video. Miss Fancy wrote packaging on her board, and they learned the importance of buying things with less packaging and to have less paper waste. Some steps are easy, she said. She erased her whiteboard and wrote reuse on it. Reuse means to use something again. An easy start is to pack your lunch in reusable containers or use a refillable water bottle. The Fancy Five was learning some valuable lessons. The processing center was an amazing place. They saw how the trash was separated, sorted, and melted. This center worked on plastic. Each type of plastic was crushed and melted into long rods that are sent to other factories to form new products. The Fancy Five toured the center, interviewed the workers, and saw pictures of new products that had been made from the plastic. They were surprised at the pictures. Who knew t-shirts and sleeping bags could be made from recycled plastic? It was a wonderful day of learning for the group. They left the center and stopped by the local mall for lunch. As the Fancy Five and the group walked around the mall, Gracie noticed that the people were staring at them. At first, she just tried to brush it off, but when it continued, she just didn't get it. It seemed they were all looking at Riker. What was up with that? Was it his service dog? As they were ordering the food at the food court, Gracie overheard a girl ask her mom, "What's wrong with him?" Her heart sank when she saw the little girl point at Riker. The girl's mom took her by the hand and pulled her away. They even left the food area. The kids ate their burgers and fries and talked about all the amazing things they'd already learned. They looked at their trash and cringed when they realized what was at their table would probably end up at the landfill. "We have to do something about all this trash. It's taking over our town," Gracie exclaimed. "Well, it's not taking over our town, but we need to be more aware of making good choices to reduce and reuse," Miss Fancy said. Meredith got up to get more ketchup, but when she saw a group of guys at the dispenser, she froze. She just stood there and looked at them. They didn't know why she was just standing there looking at them. Bailey jumped up to help Meredith because she knew she didn't like being around people she didn't know. Finally, they got their ketchup and left. As the boys walked away, Bailey heard one of them call Meredith a retard. It was the worst thing Bailey had ever experienced. As the group returned to the bus, Gracie and Henderson walked with Riker. They couldn't believe their eyes when they saw someone imitating the way he walked. At this point, Gracie was ready to explode in anger on the guy. She felt Miss Fancy grab her arm to make sure she didn't say or do anything she shouldn't. The ride back to the school was super quiet. Although it had been a great trip and they learned lots of things, Gracie, Bailey, and Henderson were shocked at how their friends with special needs were treated in public. Meredith and Riker were just at the mall to eat and have a good time, like everyone else. But they were stared at, called a horrible name, and made fun of because they were different. Riker didn't realize he was being made fun of, but Meredith knew. She was quieter than ever the rest of the day. During the next few weeks, the Fancy Five prepared their commercial. They presented it in front of the entire school, and it was a hit. Gracie asked Miss Fancy if she could talk about what else the group learned as a part of their trip, and she agreed. "The Fancy Five is a team, a good team. We worked together and had so much fun learning about recycling," Gracie said as she held up her refillable water bottle, and everyone clapped. "But we learned a bigger lesson on our field trip. We learned how to show respect to everyone. We saw how people made fun of 2 of our team members, and it hurt all of us." We show respect to people with disabilities by being patient, kind, not avoiding them or rejecting them, but including them. A good person does not stare at other people or call them names or make fun of anyone. We learn the best way to be a good person is to treat everyone the same. Miss Fancy explained to the students that people with disabilities should be treated the same as people without disabilities. She also talked about name calling and how hurtful our words can be to others. She shared how everyone is unique and special and should be treated that way. She expressed to them the need to be kind to people of all abilities. The Fancy Five not only learned about recycling, but an important lesson on how to treat their friends with special needs who want to be happy and feel accepted just like everyone else does. They decided to spread the word, so they made posters to hang around the school. They had used Mrs. T's words to help spread the word about treating everyone the same. The entire school cheered when they held their message up for everyone to see. The posters said, "Look for the good in everyone." And that's what the Fancy Five did every single day. And that's what I hope you will do as well.